Welcome to this edition of School Beat. I'm Enrique Cerna. As this school year comes to an end, students everywhere are thinking about sunshine and summer vacation. It's an opportunity for young people to be outside and to explore and to gain new experiences and participate in new activities. It's also a time families can help make those experiences an opportunity for learning. Here to tell us more are Shauna Heath, Executive Director of Curriculum and Instruction, and Program Managers Kathleen Vasquez, Literacy and Social Studies, and Janet Zombro, Mathematics. Welcome all. Good to have you here. Well, Shauna, let's talk about as you go into a summer, and I remember back when I was a kid many moons ago, they talk about that summer slide where your interest in school fades away a bit. Talk more about that.
So, as you know, summer is a time where kids are supposed to be playing and enjoying themselves, and there is that level of repetition that occurs in a classroom that deteriorates to a certain extent, and that repetition goes away and kids tend to get more and more away from the skills. It's just like when you are trying to learn something new, it's that repetition of building up the muscle memory and the mind memory. And so in the summertime, even though that we don't expect kids to be consistently working on skills, we do want to try to provide them opportunities to continue to enhance what they already know.
I guess you really don't want them just seated in front of a TV whole summer long. So
No.
talk about the things that parents need to keep in mind to try to keep the kids active.
Keep in mind that summer is a time that students and children need to be allowed to be free and have opportunities outside of routine. We're not saying that we want them to just be rigid, but that there does need to be, and there are ways for for parents to really involve their students in some learning activities while they're still fun. And there are lots of opportunities out there on a day-to-day basis that don't cost anything and are just basic interaction between the parent and the child.
Is it important for a parent, I guess again, to be involved about where their son or daughter might be as a student, to understand what they might need during the summer to keep that educational muscle going?
I think, yes, we would always encourage parents to be involved throughout the school year to understand basically what the concepts and the skills that they've learned up to that point are. But even, we all work, all three of us work obviously, and so we understand, and we all have children, that at times that slips away and you don't necessarily have that opportunity to interact with parents or teachers or school officials about what's going on in the school day. So just the basic stuff. It's always fine to just go back to what you know as a person who's experienced an educational system, and just repeating that for kids. It doesn't hurt to take them 2 steps back in the summer and just do some of that repetition.
Well, Kathleen, we all know that reading is very important for kids, really at all levels, but particularly younger kids in particular. So what advice do you give for parents to keep them on track?
Well, I think one thing all of our parents can do is connect with teachers, but right before they leave for the summer, and get a sense of what a student's reading level is, so that going into summer, they can help them select books. That would be number one. Number two, I would think getting them aware of what their students' interests are. We find that students who read a lot know what books they want to read. They're very interested. They like mysteries. They might like mythology. They might like sports pieces. So if parents can connect reading level and student interest, they have a lot more room over the summer to build on that and keep them reading over the summer.
So what suggestions do you have for, selecting the types of materials that are going to be appropriate for the young person during the summer?
Right, so you can select in 2 ways. You can definitely select based on a student's grade level, like reading level. But the other way to select is just by interest. If a student likes a book that is at a higher level, a parent can read that book to the child. Or you can buy an audiobook or rent an audiobook from the library. I think my most important message, though, is over the summer, kids should read what they're interested in reading, not what a parent wants them to read, but what they enjoy reading, because that will go a lot further than something assigned to a student.
So make it fun.
Make it fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As a young boy, I remember the one thing that I always would gravitate the most would be sports, because those were the things that really kind of interested me the most. How important is it for a parent to read to their child, particularly the younger kids?
So I think it's greatly important for a parent to read to a child, but we have to understand that some of our parents just don't have that ability. They might read in a different language, and even that would be great, but some of our parents don't read. So we have to think about a variety of ways to approach that. Definitely a parent reading to a child until the child permits. You know, when they get a little older, they're not very excited about sitting down and reading with mom and dad.
Done with that,
But there are audiobooks. I think it's really important for students to hear experienced readers read. They hear phrasing, they hear inflection, they hear voices, and that helps students, when they go to read, try to mimic that kind of expression as people read. So I think if parents read to them, or audiobooks, or older brother and sister, any of those are really key.
Well, let's talk about math, Janet Zombro, and those keeping that mind and that part of your educational muscle active during the summer months, I think is a challenge to some degree. So what do you say?
Well, that's, I find math to be very interesting, and I think that if students and their families can see where math is and where it's used, then they'll develop that interest. We have some skill levels that we still need to maintain. As we've talked here, we still need to read, but we also need to practice our facts. So we need to know those automatically so that we can solve problems. So in the summer, we want to work on our skills. We have so many places to do that. It's the same thing. We're talking, I want to follow up with the literacy. So the public libraries have books that are specifically for math. So there are some really good literature out there that the foundation connects to math. So that's very, very exciting. They should read all of those books because they're so fun. But specifically what we get the most question is, how can we help our students with those basic skills? Flashcards are always the good go-to, those are fine, but we have a lot more opportunity now outside of those flashcards. We can have games. For Seattle Public School students, elementary students have an online resource with Everyday Math that they can play those math games. We have lots of computer games, so in the same way that we're talking about literacy, that you can read this book and it's a reward, well, you can play this video game after you play this math game. A lot of those, especially on Cool Math, the students don't even know they're practicing math, but it's a game. We have a lot of, just so many resources online. So if you're going to be online anyway, let's do some math while we're there.
Because it seems to me that technology, while it can be overwhelming, it's also extremely helpful about that.
Right now, Nooks, Kindles, iPads provide you with an opportunity to take a sample of several books and start reading them. I think that's a great thing parents can do, is allow kids to download a number of samples and get a sense of what the student is interested in or what their children are interested in, and then purchase the book. So that's one way technology is very helpful, because you can just survey a ton of books before you commit. But secondly, there are a lot of games that reinforce skills of phonics and phonemic awareness, decoding, comprehension. All of those tools are online and very accessible. Many of them are free, so they're very helpful to prevent summer slump.
And just to address with the math and helping parents. So we talked a little bit about younger students, but what about older students? So as you become older and as you start to think about college, you want to do research. So we love Google. So if a parent is driving by a construction site, you can just ask them, well, what kind of math do you think they need for that? Well, where are the geometric shapes? Why do they use that? And then the student can just go home and let's just Google that and let's go find out. It's just, well, at the grocery store, or maybe my parents own a restaurant. Well, maybe your parents could ask, how do I know what price to charge for that serving? How do I know that? What are all the costs involved? I know that often encourages students then, like, I'm kind of interested in finance. I kind of want to find out how people make money and what is this interest all about? And how do your parent can just say, okay, you've got a job, you need to buy a car. Is it better to have a 6-year loan with 4% or a 4-year loan with 6%?
I'd like to know that.
So we could do the math.
Right. Well, you can, and even to make change and things like that. I mean, if you're going to find a summer job and you're working in a place where you have to, somebody comes up and gives you a $20 bill and you're making change. I mean, machines tell you now, but I think it's always good to understand how that all works. Well, go ahead.
Well, I just want to include, so what if I'm getting a cell phone? What about, how do I know which one is the best? What about this upfront charge? What about this per minute charge? How do I know which one really is the best plan? How do I know if my internet service is the best plan?
So it's there in everything we do, we read, and everything that we do. So in many ways, keeping that muscle active and is going to help kids through the summer, but also when they come back to school. So great advice. Shauna, Kathleen, and Janet, thank you very much for being here today. And thank you very much for joining us for this edition of School Beat. I'm Enrique Cerna. We'll see you next time.